Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing a 1-hour masterclass of insomnia insights. I'm going to be reviewing some of the posts on the insomnia subreddit and offering some insomnia insights and guidance along the way. We go over a lot of different stuff in this video, and I think that a lot of people listening would be able to benefit from them as well. I also made a point to name some specific chapters that you should be able to navigate to as well. If you're really going through it, I really recommend you listen to the full thing. Having said that, what I will say before we get into this is that in general, my advice if you have insomnia is to avoid the insomnia subreddit like the plague. The insomnia subreddit is maybe the most horrible, grueling, death by 1,000 cuts places to ever visit if you have insomnia. Let me put it this way, I've never ever heard anyone say, I went to the insomnia subreddit and then I felt good. And it's a really popular, maybe the most popular online insomnia community. I think the only real value people get out of it is A, it gives people a place to vent and get their anxiety, grief, and fear off their chest, but the feedback that they receive is usually not helpful and only really perpetuates insomnia in the long run, in my opinion. Or B, the only other valuable thing to get out of it is occasionally somebody will make a recommendation for them to go check out an insomnia coaching program, such as Martin Reed or anyone in the sleep coach school community, such as yours truly. So having said all that, I put a lot of work into this. I'm really excited to share it with you. Let's look at the first post. So let's look at this post. Insomnia has destroyed my life. Hi fellow insomniacs, I have had a progressive worsening insomnia for 4 years now. In the beginning I managed with a simple antihistamine, but then as it have progressed, nothing helps me get a restful sleep. I'm getting 3 to 4 hours unrested sleep every other night with 1.5 times max dose of Lunesta. This has forced me to pause med school and be on sick leave, which is real life purgatory when you can't get sleep. I've tried every sleep med and CBTI except benzos as far as I know, and nothing has helped. Even olanzapine. Yeah, I hate that drug. So yeah, right off the bat, this sounds like textbook insomnia. It's the same sort of story that I see over and over and over again. I tried out one medication, then stopped working, but oh no, it's progressed, and now not even Lunesta is working. I even did CBTI. So we have a person that is terrified and demoralized to the extent that they feel like they are in purgatory and can't get any sleep. They are trying out all these super strong drugs that they know they don't even want to take, but they take them because it's the only lifeboat they've got, or so they think. And on top of that, they're also doing CBTI, which has the reputation for being the gold standard of insomnia treatment. If they can't get sleep with even super strong medication and CBTI, then their situation must be exceptionally hopeless, right? Certainly, recovery can't be possible for this person, right? Wrong. I see this all the time. People recover from this sort of situation all the time. I went through it myself. I tried out the medication. I tried out CBTI for years, and they were helpful-ish until they stopped being helpful, and my sleep just sort of went to this up and down thing. I did also have periods where it was just really down for years. This is what my sleep looked like. Then after I started genuine insomnia recovery, this is what my sleep started to look like. This is what people's sleep, in general, big picture looks like once they start to address it the right way. And another reason why this insomnia subreddit is awful, just look at the top comment. This person is coming here looking for help, and this is the the most upvoted response they get. No success story here. My insomnia happened overnight back in 2021. I've tried 2 prescription medications, Ambien and Trazodone, neither helped. Boatloads of supplements, lifestyle, and sleep hygiene changes. Nothing. I'm 41 female, so I was leaning towards it being hormonal, which seemed on point. Been on hormones for 5 months, no help. I'm lost, depressed, going insane. If you're female and you're in your 30s plus, then maybe consider perimenopause. Other than that, I've got nothing. Sorry, it's all fucked up. Let's look at the second top comment. Look at all these helpful answers. My insomnia has gotten worse. My sleep has never been the same. The third top comment can be summarized as, there's no hope. There's a bit of misinformation regarding the whole insomnia as a symptom, not a condition. Everyone who's ever overcome insomnia, whether it was from me, Sleep Coach School, Martin Reed, Alina from Fearless Sleep, all of those success stories objectively prove this wrong. At this point, between all those coaches I've just mentioned, they've probably helped out maybe tens of thousands of people overcome insomnia, and they didn't do it by sussing out some mysterious physiological broken ailment of their body, and that's just a fact. Having said that, of course, there are physiological reasons for lack of sleep. We could technically meet the criteria for acute insomnia, which is where we have sleep difficulties for short term, which is specifically under 3 months. It could be anything ranging from medication, travel, a new job, maybe you get sick with something. Of course, these things can all affect our sleep. But chances are, if it's this chronic long-term thing that doesn't resolve itself no matter what you do, even when the original sleep disturbance is no longer there, it's most likely due to the fact that we've developed this fear or unacceptance or aversion to losing sleep. And it's very hard to convince people, specifically this person, otherwise, and that really sucks. This is truly hell. This person too, I also do not believe my insomnia is stress related. I feel like something has truly gone very wrong in my brain. I was not stressed when it happened. We've seen, between myself and the sleep coach school, we've seen countless clients who overcame insomnia for good, who A, were afraid that there was something wrong or broken with their brain, that's incredibly common, and B, who were not stressed when insomnia started. Sometimes you can be. I was stressed, sometimes you're not. You don't need to be stressed for insomnia to start initially. Sometimes the original sleep disruption that triggers the insomnia can come from a late night of partying where we had a great time. But maybe that one bad night of sleep turned into 2, and then 3, and this aversion to losing sleep might have started to take hold. 5th top comment. 42 female here. I'm about 4 or 5 years into it. Just absolutely horrific insomnia where it's not exaggerated to say. I sleep maybe 4 hours total per night and certainly not consecutive hours. And to be clear, I'm not bashing on these people. If I'm coming off as disrespectful, that's not my intent here. I mean, these are the same sort of comments that I would have made back when I was going through insomnia. The only reason why I'm saying this, why I'm making a point to highlight these comments is, imagine that you're the OP asking for help, and the top 5 responses that you have are people back to back saying, there's nothing that can be done, there's no hope, life is nothing but suffering. And this is the response that you get about 90% of the time from one of the biggest online insomnia communities out there. It's one of the first things that pop up on Google. It just teaches you, or it gives you the false impression that there is no hope and that there's nothing that can't be done about it. The most helpful comment here is this one way down at the bottom with only 1 upvote, no responses. Check out the Sleep Coach School. For those of you who don't know, that's the program that gave me the framework to overcome my own insomnia. It's the framework I use to help all my clients out of insomnia. It's called the NATO approach. What we do is we look at long-term chronic insomnia as a fear or unacceptance or aversion to losing sleep. The reason why that's such a big deal is because if we've associated being awake at nighttime as harmful, then our brain is essentially telling us that we are in a dangerous situation. If you're in a dangerous situation, your brain is not going to let you fall asleep. It would be a bad feature of your brain to let you doze off and take a nap if you were held up at gunpoint. Although that would be funny, you've got this guy trying his hardest to scare you and give you PTSD, and you find him so boring that you just take a nap in front of him. But that's why we're in this situation where you can throw all these sleep-related things at it, which do have merit to them. For example, I know there are plenty of great studies done by qualified professionals that say, for example, magnesium improves sleep quality and duration. Same with sleep hygiene as well. But they are the wrong tools for the job when it comes to insomnia, because when someone with insomnia uses them or chases them as a means to address that fear, they're not doing it nonchalantly like most people are who do not suffer with insomnia. People going through insomnia have a super stressful relationship with these supplements or the sleep hygiene, and it only reinforces the problem, which again is the aversion that we've developed of experiencing nighttime wakefulness or losing sleep. But yeah, this is the most helpful advice you'll ever really get out of the insomnia subreddit. If every time you made a post on that subreddit you just got redirected to the sleep coach school, or the Insomnia to Peace website, then the world would be a much better place. A big problem in the insomnia coaching space, maybe the biggest one, is that even though everything that I just said is right, it kind of sounds woo-woo and not nearly as legitimate as the cause behind your 15-year insomnia is due to a hormonal disruption and you need 50 milligrams of trazodone to correct it. The latter is way more of a technical answer, and it gives that branding of engineering and medical authority / professionalism. And of course, a lot of good does come out of those fields. Of course, I'm all for them. But for better or for worse, it's usually not the most helpful thing as far as chronic insomnia goes. It just isn't. So if you're watching this and you're at least considering what I'm saying to potentially have some merit to it, then you are in a good place. All right, on to the next one. Looking for a deep platonic connection or relationship with someone who understands insomnia / anxiety. What I'm looking for is a genuine connection with someone who understands that kind of mental struggle. I've been feeling pretty disconnected from normal life lately, mostly because long-term insomnia and anxiety can make it hard to relate to people who don't experience it. A lot of people around me seem to move through life easily while my brain is constantly on, overthinking, restless, or exhausted. What I'm looking for is a genuine connection with someone who understands the kind of mental struggle, whether that becomes a close friendship, platonic partnership, or possibly more over time. Yeah, very understandable. Insomnia is a very isolating condition. Oftentimes when you have insomnia, you might seek reassurance from friends and family, and they might hit you with the classic, yeah, I don't sleep well either. Sometimes I only get 5 hours of sleep, which is just not what you're experiencing at all. You might feel lucky to get 5 hours of sleep on a good night, so it makes sense to seek this sort of, it makes sense to seek out the relationship, a relationship with somebody who gets it. So what's interesting is that some people find comfort in talking to people for just that reason. They take comfort in going through an insomnia community. Other people aren't really interested in an insomnia community. Insomnia is already a big enough problem in their lives, and they don't want to engage. They don't want to make it a bigger part of their lives. Either way is fine. This person sounds like they would be more so the former. There are group insomnia coaching programs out there that have communities around them. Path to Peace is my own one. But back to this person, what I hear over and over again is how reassuring it is to talk to someone who gets it. And that can be difficult when you reach out to people who, even if they're a highly qualified therapists who are experienced in CBTI or even ACTI, which I would always recommend ACTI over CBTI, is that oftentimes the therapist never went through insomnia themselves, and that can be a turnoff to a lot of people. It would be like going to an AA meeting and the person who ran the meeting never really went through addiction themselves, and that's very crucial for a lot of people. Although what's interesting is that Daniel Erickson, who developed the NADO framework and founded the Sleep Coach School, never had insomnia himself, which is interesting, and he's obviously fantastic at what he does. What I would recommend to this person is to look for a community of people in a program that has a high success rate, or an insomnia coach. Whether or not you might prefer to, instead of talking to a number of people, you might prefer working with somebody one-on-one, because it's going to be difficult finding one of those people on the insomnia subreddit, only because they might, for the reasons I said earlier in this video, where their responses might be a bit more demoralizing. It might be some sort of depressing, well-intentioned crabs in a bucket sort of thing. So let's go on to the next one. All right, so this next one is a bit of a longer post. I'll do my best to summarize it. So this is a 42-year-old woman who suffered from horrible insomnia for over 20 years. It impacted every part of her life. I know how that feels. Over the past few years, her sleep has gradually gone from 2 to 3 hours of sleep per night to 5 to 6 hours. And then 6 weeks ago, she started hormone replacement therapy. And now this person is getting plenty of sleep, and they really feel like they are in a new chapter of their life. Now, I'm very happy that this person's sleep has gotten better. What I will say from the perspective of an insomnia coach is that it is common for people to find a magic fix during their insomnia struggles and say, this is it. For me, that looked like trazodone. I heard about this miracle drug that supposedly didn't build up a tolerance. It's been out for decades, so it had a good reputation for being safe and had all this great long-term data. And the second that I started taking it, I slept great. And this was the case for months. I think I was taking it for 6 to 9 months, and I was getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. It was great. And then, wouldn't you know it, I started to wonder if insomnia would start coming back, and my sleep started to dip again. Then I started playing around with the dosage. I started playing the milligram game, and the insomnia kind of came back full force because I never addressed the root cause of the issue. Again, whether it's medication or supplements or sleep hygiene, they're not resolving the root cause of the issue, which is that aversion to experiencing nighttime wakefulness. Having said that, the reason why our sleep can improve after taking these medications or supplements is due to something that's very similar to the placebo effect that we in the insomnia coaching space call the delegation effect. And the reason why it sort of explains why the placebo effect works. It's that we're essentially offloading our responsibility and pressure onto this drug, this magic thing that we take. We go, okay, now I don't have any self-imposed pressure. This miracle drug is going to take care of all that for me. Now, how do I know that's not the case for me? Granted, I've been over insomnia for 2 years and I've been sleeping just like I used to before my insomnia started. But how do I know I'm not in some sort of fancy truce with my insomnia? How do I know it's not going to come back? Well, if it was something, now that I know that it's not something wrong with my body or my brain, I know that it's not like there's some broken mechanism, which I thought might have been the case originally, then if that was the case, if there was something broken, that I would still be sleeping terribly. This approach to insomnia doesn't require any supplements, meditations, or any sort of biohacking, so if it was true that my body was broken in some way, then I would apparently need something to correct it. But I stopped any sort of sleep efforts. I don't take anything to try to make sleep happen. I have terrible sleep hygiene, and despite that, I'm back to how I was sleeping before insomnia started. I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours consistently. Additionally, the people who do recover from insomnia for good via natto or ACTI, by addressing the root cause of this fear or unacceptance aspect of it, they don't really succumb back to insomnia. I don't think I've heard of a single person who, once they overcame insomnia with a natto approach, lose all their progress and get back to constantly sleeping poorly. Now, while they're in recovery, or maybe even after they've been in recovery for a while, they might have a speed bump or a sleep disruption along the way. No one ever gets perfect sleep 100% of the time, insomnia or otherwise, but in general, their sleep is functionally back to 100%. I know about people who've been over it for many years and they haven't fallen back into that struggle. So if you're watching this and you feel like you might have an insomnia truce going on, maybe you're relying on a number of things to make sleep happen, it's more than possible to recover from insomnia without those things. Almost always, everyone going through insomnia has picked up a number of safety mechanisms or sleep efforts to try to make sleep happen because they feel like they need it. And again, that sort of only big picture reinforces the fear or unacceptance of losing sleep at night. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Can't fall asleep. I genuinely hate insomnia so much. It feels like God is punishing me every time I was close to falling asleep. I'd randomly feel on edge and wake back up. I just rolled around in bed for 6 hours and I give up. Is there a sleep? I feel like I'm going insane and I don't know what to do because melatonin and magnesium is complete bullshit. I have no motivation to do anything because of how tired I am. Everything just sounds boring. So this person has been suffering from insomnia for a while, and later on in the thread that they say that they've at least had some minor insomnia their whole life. And weirdly enough, melatonin and magnesium aren't working for them despite the fact that we have tons of high-quality, reputable research papers saying that those supplements objectively improve sleep. Again, this isn't to say that those supplements don't impact or improve sleep, but long-term insomnia is not something that you typically resolve within supplements. And what makes it worse is that I actually love my life, but I'm not able to experience it because of sleep. I'm still going to force myself to do what I have to, but this shit is exhausting. I don't usually not sleep. Usually it's just less sleep. So I like that this person is going about their life and enjoying it as much as they can. It's a very common theme that people often bring up with insomnia, is that it's difficult to live their life as much as they would like to, allegedly. I don't think that that's the case. So they just start to shut in. They almost become, they essentially put their life on pause. We saw in that other post that someone stopped going to med school to appease their insomnia. Maybe not even to appease their insomnia, to try to make sleep happen, but they feel like they can't do anything involving performance until they figure out this whole sleep thing. Putting your life on pause is one of the most unhelpful things you could ever do as far as your insomnia goes. While there are days where it is difficult, once you start addressing it in the right way, it usually becomes easier to live your life and you can get good enjoyment out of it. Some of the best days of my life, I was very sleep deprived. It's helpful to realize that's possible, because otherwise it creates the implication that you can only live life if you get sleep the night beforehand, which, as I can imagine, is not really the most helpful thing. Of course, there will be discomfort involved, but what would be way more uncomfortable and way more unhelpful is to become a shut-in out of insomnia. He goes on to say, probably gonna try CBD, but not gonna keep my hopes high at all, and THC makes me paranoid now, so now I can't use the only thing that has ever helped with sleep. As we can see, this person is chasing the next big supplement or drug to make sleep happen. Maybe it works for a little bit, but then it stops working, and then they start playing the milligram game and start chasing the next drug. The milligram game is when we do the whole, well, should I do 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams? Is that going to give me too much of a tolerance? Should I cycle off and on? And should I just do 1 milligram tonight? Should I do microdosing? Should I better get 3 PhDs to figure out the optimal way my unique body processes these exact chemicals at this exact time? And all the while, this sort of stuff is really unhelpful, because it just reinforces that aversion or unacceptance of losing sleep, which is really the root of long-term chronic insomnia. Here's another post. This one's a short one. I miss sleeping and feeling like myself. Just a vent, can't sleep again, everyone else is sleeping right now. Tomorrow is going to suck, and I feel so alone. Yeah, I know how that feels. So there we go again with feelings of isolation. It feels like a very lonely thing. It makes sense for people to only find a community for this sort of stuff online. And not because it's necessarily exceptionally rare, but because a lot of people don't really like to talk about it. They're kind of like closeted insomniacs. I know I'm just going off, and I know I'm just going off of Reddit posts in this video, but this is a really common thing for people. This is a common way for them to express their insomnia grief, regardless of where I find these people. The more I read these, the more I get the sense that what they're looking for is to just get something off their chest quick and get that some sort of camaraderie. Having said that, this insomnia subreddit is not necessarily the most reassuring support system. I mean, just looking at these comments, I mean, you're not alone, man. I feel like this shit is almost permanent. Yeah, me too. My doc took me off meds and I don't sleep much at all. This guy, yeah, same here. I feel totally depressed. Do you see what I mean? It's the blind leading the blind. And again, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. It's really hard, and they're expressing their own suffering and trying to provide some level of compassion to these people. All right, on to the next one. Does omega-3 cause insomnia? This is a new one. From my experience, when I take omega-3 or eat fish, I experience insomnia, and sometimes I can't sleep at all. Even when I do manage to sleep, it's very short and uncomfortable. I've researched many possible causes, and when I stopped taking omega-3 and eating fish, my sleep quality improved. Has anyone else had this experience? Yeah, so this is a new one. Right off the bat, I can't tell if this person came to me, I would have to know more about this person's history with insomnia, how long it's been going on for, Do they normally sleep fine and it's just tied to this omega-3 thing? I'm not even, because to me it's not clear that this person is going through insomnia. Off the top of my head, I will say that I haven't heard of fish oil being a sleep disruption. Note that I'm saying sleep disruption here, not insomnia. They're two different things. Sleep disruption is not the same thing as chronic, long-term insomnia. I suppose sleep disruption can be considered acute insomnia, but almost always when people talk about insomnia in the sense of nothing I do is working, it's been like this forever, they're talking about chronic, long-term insomnia. But yeah, things like caffeine could cause short-term sleep disruption for sure. Could omega-3 fish oil cause sleep disruption for someone? It's certainly not known for doing that, but hey, to this guy's point, everybody is different. Who knows, maybe it gives him gut pain or for whatever reason, and that disrupts his sleep. But, again, that is a very different thing than long-term chronic insomnia. People who have chronic insomnia usually have near-perfect conditions to sleep, or at least they appear to have perfect conditions. They're avoiding everything that causes bad sleep on paper, they're taking the supplements, and usually engaging in at least some sort of sleep hygiene. And sleep is still not happening to them despite the conditions for sleep being appearing to be ideal. Let me put it this way. I've never worked with anyone who had insomnia for years, and the key to overcoming their insomnia was just something like, oh, let's find the one physical thing that you're doing to your body every day that's completely destroying your sleep drive. It's almost as if there's a sense of, once I start this tedious process of elimination, that I can find the one thing. So let me begin this never-ending quest where I explore each and every single rabbit hole. A few years ago, when I was a foolish young man, I would have thought that it would be something like that as well, but it's just not. Now, to be clear, I don't know if this guy or gal has insomnia. I would need to talk to them more. It doesn't seem like it. It seems this person has noticed some strange sleep disruption that happens, but it doesn't seem like they consistently experience a lack of sleep. But I really don't know. Okay, so on to the next one. Has anyone else completely lost the ability to fall asleep naturally? I'm at the point where my brain literally won't shut down without heavy meds. Antipsychotics or benzos, anything lighter like melatonin, magnesium, valerian, every supplement and over-the-counter sleep aid I've thrown at it does absolutely nothing. The weird part is I don't even feel sleepy anymore. No natural drowsiness, no yawning at night, no okay time for bed signal. Just a wired brain that stays wired until I chemically force it online. Yep, been there, done that myself. If I try to tough it out, I roll around for hours, staring at the ceiling. Eventually, I either cave and take something heavy or end up pulling an all-nighter. There's no in-between. How did I get here? And more importantly, has anyone actually climbed back out? I wonder, I'm reading this. It sounds kind of AI-ish. I'm going to assume that it's a person, but those dashes are like a pretty big AI indicator. But assuming that this is a person, I'd love to hear from people who used to depend on heavy sedatives and somehow rebuilt natural sleep. CBTI, slow taper, something I'm not even thinking of. Feeling pretty stuck and would appreciate. So yeah, this is a very common situation and concern for people with insomnia. Speaking from personal experience, I also almost never felt that sleepiness at nighttime. It was strange when it started coming back during my recovery. I thought that I had completely lost that sensation. I thought that I would never really feel that again, or at least consistently. When we believe we're in that state of danger of, oh shit, it's nighttime, how's tonight gonna go? Am I gonna feel like shit tomorrow? That's when our brain believes that we are in a state of some sort of danger. I get that it's kind of tautological. When we believe that we are in danger, it makes sense for us to be very vigilant or on edge. This can produce that hyper-arousal feeling that blocks that sleepiness. Hyper-arousal is excellent at blocking sleepiness. It's so good at it. And I want to take this time to say for anyone listening who's going through insomnia right now, that chances are, you're probably going to be surprised to hear this, but chances are you are most likely very good at sleeping. Now, that might have annoyed a lot of you just now. How can you say that I'm good at sleeping, John? I haven't had a good night of sleep in weeks. Because while your brain is very good at sleeping, it's also very good at keeping you safe. It thinks it's doing you a favor by keeping you alert. It's almost like telling you, hey, don't fall asleep just yet. We need to be alert. We need to monitor the situation. So it makes sense that the more we overcome that fear or unacceptance, whatever you want to call it, of losing sleep, the more that sleepiness comes back to us more and more. If I try to tough it out, see, he also goes on, so just to go back to this, if I try to tough it out, I roll around for hours staring at the ceiling. Eventually, I either cave and take something heavy or end up pulling an all-nighter. There's no in between. Yeah, I know how that feels, although there's a good chance this person could be getting some sleep, more sleep than they realize. That's called paradoxical insomnia. I just posted a video about it a few days ago. I have to be very careful proposing that idea, because otherwise it sounds like I'm denying their experiences. And how annoying would it be if, for example, you came to me saying that you weren't sleeping and I just told you, no, you're sleeping just fine. Again, that was something that I also went through as well, so I know how it feels. I will say that, yes, it is, of course, possible to be having genuine all-nighters, of course, but it's more likely that you are probably getting some sort of sleep out of it and just don't realize it. Now, as far as what to do, it's more helpful to take steps towards voluntarily experiencing wakefulness. This can look like doing anything during the nighttime for the pure enjoyment of it and not to try to make sleep happen. This is often referred to as befriending wakefulness. The reason why this is important is because it allows us to slowly relearn that nighttime can be a pleasant time where we don't have any anxious obligations to try to make sleep happen, but rather to make the most of that objectively peaceful period during the night. That's always much more helpful to do. Now, in terms of what I would recommend this person to do in terms of weaning these heavy sedatives, I wouldn't be able to provide that sort of guidelines, as I'm not a medical expert or practitioner, unless this person were to get their doctor's approval. That's something that, Now, in terms of what I would recommend that this person do in terms of weaning these heavy sedatives, I wouldn't be able to provide that sort of guidance unless this person were to get their doctor's approval. I don't have any medical experience. I'm not a medical practitioner or professional. Assuming their doctor gave them the go-ahead to stop taking these sedatives and this person was interested in going off of them, then it's really up to them to decide how they would want to go about getting off of them safely. Some people prefer going cold turkey, if that's an option for them, if it's a safe option for them, and others would prefer to taper it off instead. Now, it's easier said than done to stop taking medication, of course, simply because of the whole triggering aspect of it. However, it starts to become easier once we start to get a little bit more confident that we can sleep without these meds, because hey, we didn't need them before this whole thing started. CBTI is something that I have a lot of experience with. It really helped me a bit back in the day, but at a certain point it started to do more harm than good. A major component of CBTI is called sleep restriction. For those of you who don't know, sleep restriction is where you limit the amount of time you spend in bed. Why do we do this? Well, because people with insomnia will oftentimes spend a lot of time in bed, way more than usual. In a lot of cases, in some cases, they'll go as long as maybe 10 to 12 hours. I did this too. The reason why people do this is to try to compensate for the bad sleep that they're getting. They think that if by staying in a bed for 7 hours and they only get 3 hours of sleep out of that, then if they stay in bed for longer, then that 3 hours of sleep will turn into 4 or 5 or 6 hours of sleep. That's the idea. Maybe you can luck out a few times, but big picture, it's not really going to help you out. The more of our life we sacrifice in order to try to make sleep happen, the less helpful that really is. And spending 12 hours a day in bed just to try to get some mediocre sleep is really expensive in terms of time, and it's not really a great payoff. So the idea behind sleep restriction is that by limiting the amount of time we spend in bed, we avoid wasting all that time and we build up a greater sleep drive that will help us fall asleep. On top of that, since we're spending more time in bed asleep, it's helping us strengthen our association that we are in bed, we are asleep. We sleep in bed, we don't toss and turns. That's the idea, that's the theory behind sleep restriction. This really was the first effective thing I did when I was going through insomnia, but at a certain point in time, like I said earlier in the video, I'm pretty sure, it stopped being so helpful. At a certain point, the sleep restriction became another tool for me to play around with, much like how someone would experiment with supplements to force sleep to happen. The only difference was that instead of deciding if I wanted 10 or 15 milligrams of something, I was deciding if I wanted to spend 6 hours or 6.5 hours in bed. It was really helpful in getting over some short-term speed bumps, but really, in hindsight, I really wish I just discovered the natto approach much earlier. I just don't have to juggle anything at nighttime. That's really something that's refreshing to me to this day, is that when I go to bed, I don't have an array of options at my disposal that I have to carefully pick and choose. Okay, I will do this thing, and then I'll do this thing. Oof, better not avoid those thoughts too much, and better think these thoughts instead. I just don't have to deal with that anymore. When I feel sleepy, I go to bed, and it's as simple as that. All right, now here's another one that I'm really excited to go over. I did a lot of this back in the day. I can't believe I'm gonna get to go over this one. You have probably tried everything, but recently found this lifesaver. You have probably tried everything too: alcohol, pills, breathing exercises, muscle relaxation exercises, dark room, earbuds, early late meals, banning tech, coffee, alcohol, etc., etc. Very common theme, by the way, for people going through insomnia is that it's very common for everyone to have that trope of I've tried everything associated with sleep, and it's still not happening. So, and that was almost always the case for everyone who has also overcome it and left insomnia behind for good. This person continues, but found this one below. It's rather effective for me 80 to 90% of the time. As Newt would say, it mostly works at night. Mostly. Keep your eyes open in bed. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you want to hasten sleep, try laying in bed in the dark with your eyes open, says Colin Espy, a professor of sleep medicine at the University of Oxford. This is part of a technique called paradoxical intention that he first described in 1985, which means resisting sleep instead of trying to force it. Professor Espy says when people get anxious about not being able to sleep, they can't sleep. Instead of trying to force sleep, the idea is to turn the table so you find yourself giving up on trying to stay. The idea is to turn to the table so you find yourself giving up on trying to stay awake. I think they meant they give up trying to fall asleep, but I think we know what they meant. When people start to find it hard to keep their eyes open, we tell them to keep them open a few minutes longer in the dark until they have to abandon that, and then closing their eyes feels like a relief, says Professor Espy. This allows you to discover the drive to sleep is very strong and accept it will always happen naturally. So this one was another one that worked for me. It made sense to me. I don't think I even had this one recommended to me. I think I might have thought of this one on my own when I was watching Saving Private Ryan, and one of the characters said the trick to falling asleep is to try to stay awake. And I was maybe like year 2 or 3 into insomnia at that point, and I thought, hey, I'll give it a shot. And I figured that the best way to try to stay awake while in bed was to play this game with my eyes. So I called it eyes open equals good, and it almost became a mantra that I would repeat to myself to remind myself to keep my eyes open as I get ready to bed. I did this, of course, on top of taking my nightly fistful of supplements of L-theanine, magnesium, melatonin, and ashwagandha, all that sort of stuff. It made sense to me, and I was really close to figuring out what the actual issue was here. And this Professor Colin Espy was right when he says that people get anxious. When people get anxious about not being able to sleep, they can't sleep. He's totally right, but I don't agree with the way that he's implementing it, because that too becomes a way to force sleep to happen. In my own personal experience, Yes, this sometimes worked, as did a lot of things. That kind of sometimes worked, maybe a little bit, and then it stopped, and then it kind of worked again, then it kind of stopped. But oftentimes I would get stuck in that in-between state that we call paradoxical insomnia. It was a really weird state where I would kind of forget that my eyes were open, or that I was supposed to keep them open, and I would say, oh no, my eyes have been closed for the past however many minutes. I don't even know how many minutes. I better keep them open. Oh shoot, there goes my heart rate. I was going about sleep wrong. Damn it, now I'm wide awake. Okay, I'm panicking. It's in the middle of the night. I can't fall asleep. As you can probably tell, I've gone through a lot of insomnia remedies. I didn't exactly have it for a short time, and I tried out a lot of different things to try to remediate them. But there's a common theme here, and the problem is the fear itself. The fear or unacceptance or aversion of not being able to sleep is what is encouraging us to struggle and fight harder and harder. That's why I say that insomnia is not a sleep problem, at least not directly. Rather, I would prefer to describe insomnia as a fear problem that becomes a struggle problem that then results in a sleep problem. Okay, so this one has a lot going on, so I'm going to go bit by bit. This one post is titled, "Weed Changed My Life." I've been dealing with insomnia for a long time now. I can remember it since I was 11 to 12. My parents would punish me for not sleeping at a certain time or not being able to wake up in the morning for school. I obviously didn't know what the problem was. I would tell them I just can't sleep, but they blamed it on video games and screens. This went on for years and years, constantly being blamed for something I couldn't control, yet I didn't know what it was, nor could I express it. This is early on. So yeah, that's really unfortunate, and I'm sorry to hear that this person has had sleep issues going back to even when they were a young kid. I'd have to talk to this person more to figure out what exactly their sleep difficulties look like. Were they able to sleep 5 to 6 nights a week? Less than that? Were they only getting 2 hours of sleep every night? What exactly did their sleep difficulties look like? What I will say is that it's very common it's very common for video games and screens to be a red herring for insomnia. Again, this sort of stuff can affect sleep for sure. What's really demoralizing for almost everyone with insomnia is that they will cut that sort of stuff off. Let's say they'll stop doing anything that involves a screen 2 to 3 hours before they go to bed, and yet they still don't really see that improvement to the sleep they're looking for. And although a lot of people on the insomnia subreddit do chase those solutions out, every now and then I will see a post where they call out sleep hygiene for being an ineffective solution to their insomnia. Every now and then I'll see these posts that say, I've been on top of the sleep hygiene, I've followed all to the letter, and it's bullshit, it doesn't work. So if you're in a similar situation, I don't want you to feel concerned that sleep hygiene isn't affecting your insomnia. It's very common for that to not have a positive impact on your insomnia. It didn't really for me, if at all. Fast forward to when I was 18, since working and being in education full-time and having other autoimmune conditions and not being able to sleep at all, too tired for anything, falling asleep outside or on public transport, I decided to contact my GP regarding it. I vaguely knew what insomnia was, but never considered it at the time. So one thing that really sticks out to me here is I wasn't able to fall asleep at all, but I was able to fall asleep outside or on public transport. So they are able to sleep, but it's just in these unconventional places. And to me, that sounds a lot like that sort of almost performance anxiety that people with insomnia often get. A lot of people that I help overcome their insomnia for good will report to me, especially at the beginning of working with them, that it's very difficult for them to sleep in ideal conditions, meaning that it's nighttime, they're in their bed, there's nothing unusual or stressful going on, besides their insomnia stress, that is. But in terms of life events, it's mundane and usual, and sleep is still not happening. But they're able to fall asleep on a train ride in the middle of the day when it goes against their circadian rhythm completely, and it's a much noisier environment. You would think that sleep would be, if their sleep system is so fragile, then it would be next to impossible for them to sleep in these public places. But we have a term for these events, and they're called magic moments. It's what happens when sleep catches us at times that really surprise us. Wow, I can't believe I fell asleep 1 hour after I had a big cup of coffee. Wow, I can't believe that I had a nap when I have something stressful going on later tonight. The reason why these usually happen is because there's an absence of pressure. We know we're not supposed to sleep at a given time, and we're not trying to make sleep happen, so therefore it's much easier for sleep to happen to us. UK is known for being very bad in dealing with insomnia. If you browse online, millions of real people dealing with insomnia are turned away and left without medications. My grades were slipping, I was too tired to socialize, depression and anxiety worsened, which at the time I didn't realize this, what could be causing it. Life just felt dull and boring, and I dreaded any little task or responsibility. Coupled with being severely ill, my mental health was in the gutter. I have noticed that my stuff seems to be popular among people in the UK. My first client was from the UK, and she did 2 success stories on my channel. You can check them out here and here. I wanted to have her back on to show people, like, hey, this isn't a short-term fix. I didn't happen to interview her at a good time the first time around. I brought her on again, I think it was 9 months later, and her sleep has only improved since the last time I spoke to her. So I wanted to really show that proof, because a lot of people do have success stories with clients on their channel, but I think there's a nagging suspicion. I know I certainly felt this way, that they only interview this person when their sleep just happened to be good. But I wanted to really show that no, this isn't just like a quick window. This is a long-term effect, so we can overcome this for good. Having said that, Having said that, what I will say is that it doesn't seem like any medical system in any country is great at handling insomnia, or at least I haven't heard otherwise. I didn't get trazodone until only after I asked for it explicitly, and when that stopped working, I asked my doctor for any other sleep aid. I found a resource on the insomnia subreddit where someone laid out each and every single kind of sleep medication, and I remember going through the list with them, like, can I get this one? Can I get this one? Can I get this one? And they wouldn't give me anything else stronger than the trazodone because they considered the sleep medications to be too dangerous. My take at the time was, well, I'm pretty sure it's also dangerous to never sleep, but hey, you're the expert. And also see that this person was, in their own words, too tired to socialize. And I get it. I really understand that when you're sleep deprived, it's really uncomfortable, and the last thing you want to do is go out and do these sort of things. But having said that, I really, really recommend people do not shut off their social life because they're too tired or uncomfortable. It's really easy having said that, I really, really recommend people. Having said that, it's really unhelpful to shut your social life off because you're too tired from insomnia. It's really easy for insomnia to consume more and more of our lives because of that, and when that happens, it inherently becomes more powerful. Because now, the concern doesn't just be, when we go to bed, the concern is no longer, will I feel terrible tomorrow? Now the concern becomes, will I feel terrible tomorrow, and will I be able to see my friend tomorrow? Which is horrible. We all have lives to live, and it breaks my heart to see people canceling plans with friends and family because they feel uncomfortable. I really think it's much more helpful to go ahead with those plans, and you would be surprised at how much fun you end up having. There are times when I was going through my insomnia recovery, even during rough speed bumps, that I had to talk myself into going out, and was I uncomfortable at times? Yeah, sure, but I ended up having a great time, and I would catch myself even forgetting that I was so sleep deprived just because I was so caught up in the good company of my friends and family. So that's something that I would always say is really helpful, is to follow through with those plans and don't let it cancel your life. I was referred to a specialist right after at 18 for a year and a half, no response, no updates, no medications. And I was very frustrated with my specialist as well. I've said this before on my channel, but I went to a sleep physician, and it took forever for the referral to even go through. And in the meanwhile, that gave me this sort of pressure of, you're not going to be able to sleep until the insurance finally checks out, and then you can schedule an appointment, and then you're going to have to wait for the appointment, and then you're going to have to take a sleep study, and then you're going to have to wait for the results, and then they're going to come up with a treatment plan. And I did all that waiting and the sleep study, and I did the sleep study and the follow-up, and it gave me nothing. I think at all said and done, the whole process only hurt me. I don't think it gave me... I don't think I'm exaggerating at all when I say that there's no positive outcome with that sort of stuff. And I was really devastated because I had very high hopes that out of everyone who I talked to, that the sleep physician would be able to help me out. And instead, I just felt very demoralized. So this person goes on to say, a friend then offered some weed, and of course I didn't hesitate to try it. I can vividly remember sleeping like a baby that night. I can honestly say that it was probably the best sleep of my life. It may sound weird to remember such a mundane thing, but it worked so well. Some people have judged me for it, which I don't really care about. It's a medication that gets prescribed to me. I wouldn't even class myself as a stoner. I mainly smoke or take an edible at night, and that's all. I treat it like a medicine. I know it's not ideal. I'm aware it can have some side effects, and that doesn't put me into a deep sleep, but I prefer 5 to 8 hours of consistent daily light sleeping instead of 1 to 2 days of no sleep and waking up multiple times throughout a 3-hour sleep and dealing with the myriad of other issues that insomnia comes with. And look, I totally get where this person is coming from. You know, I don't care if people judge me for it. At least I'm able to get some sleep from this stuff. If you're going through a rough speed bump, the only thing you care about naturally is just getting sleep. Ask anyone with chronic insomnia, and I would bet that 99.9% of them would choose a little bit of judgment over not being able to get some sleep. It's really tempting to also do it when the side effects are negligible. I made a post on Reddit some time ago that really did not go well. People were not happy with it because they thought that I was bashing on people who used weed as a means to address their insomnia, but that was not my intent at all. If you're fine with using THC, then I don't see an issue with it whatsoever. I don't have an issue with people using it so long as they are fine with using it, meaning so long as it doesn't interfere with other aspects of their life. Whenever you do something, whatever it may be, THC or anything else, that to make sleep happen that comes at an expense of the quality of your life, in the long run with insomnia, that's usually not very helpful. I'm thinking about one person who I was working with for a while who used THC to help him with his insomnia, and he hated using THC. He did not like using it. He didn't like how it made him feel. He didn't like how much he was using. It was causing other personal issues, and it went against his own principles and morals. He really had a hard time. He wanted to get off this stuff, but he had a really hard time doing that because he was so terrified of not getting sleep. He was terrified of the idea of getting sleep without using THC as a crutch. But the more we worked together, the more that he was able to overcome that massive hurdle. I distinctly remember him saying something along the lines of, I wish I never started using this stuff because now it feels like I've got this permanent crutch that I have to use that I resent. So now if this person in this post doesn't have any of that sort of issue, then great. If this person goes their whole life getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night and they're fine using THC every night, I don't really see an issue there. Of course, in the context of insomnia, of course, there might be some other medical side effects or whatever that come out as a result of that. I'm speaking strictly in the context of what's helpful in regards to insomnia. With the disclaimer that whenever we develop a belief that we need something in order for sleep to happen, whether it's THC or magnesium or some sort of magic routine that we do before bed, whenever we feel like we need that thing, it's usually not the most helpful thing because we start to develop a stressful relationship around that thing. What I will say is that if this person's sleep does start to slip, that's fine. We can always get back to addressing the actual root cause of the issue. This person isn't doomed either way. So I just want to make that very clear. My insomnia suddenly got weird. Normally, I only have issues with falling asleep at least 2 hours of waiting every day, no sleep until next night on some days, usually once a week, but something has changed. I suddenly wake up after 2 to 3 hours of sleep feeling fully awake and can't go back to sleep even if I try to. It's been like this for the last 6 to 7 days and I'm still not feeling exhausted, depressed, or anything. What's happening? Can this damage my brain? Mirtazapine and trazodone won't help either. They just make me tired and nervous next day. So yeah, it can be pretty jarring when our insomnia patterns suddenly change without any warning. The story used to be, it takes me a long time to fall asleep. That's what my sleep and insomnia looks like. But now it looks completely different. Why? What's changed? Has something with my body made anything? Has something with my body changed and now I have to chase some sort of entirely new solution to help preserve the little sleep that I'm getting? And there's a comment in there that gives the label of sleep maintenance insomnia. I kind of think that these sort of labels are accidentally unhelpful. The more that we try to label and categorize our insomnia and try to find a solution for it based off of the specific characteristics of it, I think that's more unhelpful. I don't like these labels as I believe that the simpler our approach is to insomnia, the better. Regardless of whether or not it takes this person a long time to fall asleep or if they wake up in the middle of the night, usually what's helpful when these sort of patterns come up is to resist the urge to change things up to try to regain the sleep that we lose. Said that, it's not terribly uncommon for insomnia patterns to shift. For me personally, my insomnia went through phases as well. In fact, I went through this exact shift that this guy is describing. During other phases, I would have paradoxical insomnia for the first few hours, and then I would wake up, and then I'd be awake for the rest of the night. This really made things confusing, and I assumed that I had to respond to these pattern changes as though they actually meant something. It made me put way more effort and thought in the day trying to plan and strategize my way around sleep. How's sleep gonna happen tonight? Remember, when we recover from insomnia, it's pretty typical for us to experience speed bumps during our recovery. So let's say we start down here, we get a little bit better, and then, we have a little bit of a dip. That's what we call a speed bump, just any patch of difficult sleep. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anyone who's had a completely perfect, clean recovery. That just doesn't happen. For example, when I would start to wake up during the middle of the night, it would inspire me to take another dose of trazodone at that time on top of the first trazodone I would take at the beginning of the night. So that would be an example of me trying to change my behavior to chase the pattern. What sticks out to me is that this person says, I suddenly wake up after 2 to 3 hours of sleep and can't get back to sleep even if I try to. Yeah, so this middle of the night trying to fall back asleep can look like a lot of different things. People usually try to make sleep happen by employing breath work, meditation, redosing some medications like I did, yoga. In fact, I did some combination of all those above as well. Maybe I didn't do yoga, but it's common for people to utilize as a way to try to make sleep happen. In big picture, all they're trying to do is they're trying to essentially force themselves to calm down. They're going under the idea that if I feel anxious, then that will prevent sleep from happening. So I need to force myself to no longer feel anxious. Trying to force yourself to calm down doesn't really work that well. It's not super helpful, as that's still considered a sleep effort. A sleep effort is when we try to do something to force sleep to happen. However, when you're doing something simply because you find it enjoyable, there isn't anything necessarily wrong with that. For example, yoga could be a sleep effort if you're using it as a means to fall asleep. But if you feel like doing yoga when sleep isn't happening to you on any given night because you genuinely enjoy doing yoga, then I don't see anything wrong with that. So we covered a lot of ground here. I hope this was reassuring for anyone listening who might have insomnia. I really wanted to highlight how common a lot of these problems are in the context of insomnia, and despite how hopeless you may feel right now, that recovery is inevitable once you start going about it in the right way. If this sounds like you, I would highly recommend working with an insomnia coach. By far one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life was not work with an insomnia coach sooner. It really dragged my insomnia out by a considerable long time. So I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please feel free to do the usual like, comment, subscribe stuff. Here at Insomnia to Peace, I provide coaching services for people looking to overcome their insomnia for good.